The KRYLL Alliance fleet was a sight to behold, even in the vast emptiness of space. 7,000 warships, arranged in perfect formation, their sleek hulls gleaming under the distant light of Sol. Grand Admiral Malachur stood on the command bridge of his flagship, the Dominion, his tall frame casting a long shadow across the polished floor. He was renowned throughout 12-star systems for his swift, efficient conquests, a tactician whose cold precision had earned him both fear and respect. "Tactical assessment," he commanded, his voice even and controlled despite the anticipation that coursed through him. This would be his most significant conquest yet. Lieutenant Commander Vex responded immediately. "All systems optimal, Admiral. Earth's defensive capabilities are primitive as expected. They have detected our presence, but possess no weapons capable of threatening our fleet. Their global communications networks are in chaos. We estimate complete capitulation within 16 standard hours after initial engagement." Malachur nodded, satisfied. The intelligence reports had been clear. Earth was technologically underdeveloped compared to the KRYLL Alliance, but possessed abundant strategic resources, rare minerals, vast water reserves, and a compatible atmosphere. The indigenous species had potential as well, adaptable, resilient labor for the Empire's ever-expanding industrial needs. "Prepare the first wave for atmospheric entry," Malachur ordered. "Target their military installations, communication centers, and governmental structures as planned. Minimal civilian casualties. The Emperor desires an intact workforce." "Yes, Admiral," Vex acknowledged, turning to relay the commands. The bridge hummed with focused activity as preparations for the invasion accelerated. Malachur allowed himself a small moment of satisfaction. Earth would be his crowning achievement, the conquest that would secure his legacy in KRYLL history. But then, something peculiar happened. First, it was just a flicker on the main tactical display. Then, the weapons targeting systems began reporting errors. Within moments, every screen on the bridge flickered, went dark, and then illuminated again, not with tactical data or targeting coordinates, but with what appeared to be humans in white coverings preparing food substances. "What is this?" Malachur demanded, his composure slipping. Before anyone could respond, the ship's internal lighting system began pulsing rhythmically, in perfect synchronization with a strange, repetitive music that suddenly blared through the ship's communication system. "Disco," the ship's AI announced pleasantly, a Earth music style popular in the 1970s. "Would you like to know more about the cultural significance of platform shoes?" Vex frantically worked at his console. "Admiral, all weapon systems are offline. Navigation is compromised. Our tactical AI is... He looked up, bewildered. "It's composing poetry about the meaning of existence." Similar reports flooded in from across the fleet. 7,000 of the most advanced warships in known space, suddenly transformed into floating platforms of nonsensical Earth entertainment and philosophical musings. Warships incapable of war. After hours of diagnostic attempts and failed system reboots, the source of the interference was finally identified. Lieutenant Kale, a young communications officer with an unusual interest in alien cultures, was the first to trace the signal. "Admiral," she reported, standing at attention before Malachur's command chair. "We've located the source of the disruption. It's coming from a small human outpost orbiting the sixth planet, the one they call Saturn." The tactical display showed a magnified image of a small, weathered space station positioned near Saturn's rings. It looked ancient by KRYLL standards, a collection of cylindrical modules with outdated solar arrays and minimal defenses. "Saturn Research Outpost 7, read the designation on its hull. This primitive structure is responsible for disabling my entire fleet," Malachur asked, his voice dangerously quiet. "It appears so, Admiral," Kale confirmed. "We've attempted to establish communication, but we're only receiving automated messages about telescope maintenance schedules." Malachur's fist came down hard on the arm of his command chair. "Send in the Shadow Strike team. I want that station neutralized immediately. Manual infiltration No energy weapons that could be affected by whatever field they're generating. Within an hour, the elite Shadow Strike team departed in a stealth shuttle, moving silently towards Saturn Station 7. Malachur watched their progress on the monitoring systems, confident that these highly trained operatives would soon resolve this unexpected obstacle. That confidence evaporated when the Shadow Strike shuttle suddenly veered off course, ignoring all recall commands. It began executing a perfect orbital loop around Saturn's moon Mimas, while the team's communications channel played what cultural databases identified as human operatic music. Malachur, for the first time in his decorated military career, felt something approaching panic. His mighty armada, poised to conquer an entire planet, had been rendered impotent by a single, aging space station. His authority, his reputation, his unbroken record of victories, all now in jeopardy because of this incomprehensible situation. On Saturn Station 7, Dr. Evelyn Reed was completely unaware of the chaos she was causing. The 45-year-old astrophysicist hummed to herself as she adjusted the parameters on her experimental device, pausing occasionally to push her unruly gray-streaked hair out of her eyes. Around her, the small laboratory module was cluttered with equipment, coffee mugs, and handwritten notes attached to every available surface. Parameter shift complete, she muttered to herself, recording the change in her notebook. Field stability at 96%. Much better than yesterday. For the past 18 months, Dr. Reed had been alone on SS-7, conducting her experimental research on subspace communication utilizing Saturn's gravitational field. The station had been slated for decommissioning before she convinced Earth Space Administration to let her use it for her work. Research most of her colleagues had dismissed as theoretical at best, delusional at worst. Her experiment involved generating specific patterns in subspace, using Saturn's gravity well as an amplifier, theoretically allowing faster-than-light communication. So far, she documented some fascinating anomalies in the subspace field, but hadn't achieved actual communication. What she didn't realize was that her experimental device was interacting with the KRYLL fleet's energy network in ways she couldn't have anticipated, causing the cascade of system failures and bizarre behavior. Back on the Dominion, after multiple failed attempts to neutralize SS-7, Lieutenant Kale approached Malachur with an unconventional suggestion. "Admiral, if I may," she began cautiously, "I believe I can adjust our communication array to cut through the interference. We might be able to establish direct visual contact with whoever is on that station." Malachur, exhausted after hours of failed strategies, nodded his approval. "Proceed, Lieutenant. At this point, I'm willing to try anything." After several attempts and adjustments, the main screen on the bridge flickered to life, revealing the interior of the human space station. Seated at a cluttered workstation was a human female with disheveled hair and a surprised expression. Dr. Evelyn Reed had been about to take a sip of coffee when her communication screen unexpectedly activated, showing the stern face of what was clearly not a human being. The coffee mug slipped from her fingers, spilling across her notes. "Oh, hello," she managed, blotting at the spreading coffee stain with her sleeve. "This is unexpected. How did you access this channel? It's supposed to be a closed system." Malachur stared at the human, momentarily speechless. This was their great adversary? This disheveled, apparently disorganized individual? "I am Grand Admiral Malachur of the KRYLL Alliance," he finally stated, his translator converting his words to English. "You are interfering with the operations of my fleet. Cease your activities immediately or face destruction." Evelyn blinked, processing this information. "Fleet? KRYLL Alliance." Her eyes widened as understanding dawned. "Oh my goodness, you're extraterrestrials. Actual, non-Earth intelligent life. This is amazing. I have so many questions." "Silence," Malachur commanded. "You will explain how you are disrupting our systems, and you will deactivate your defensive measures immediately." Evelyn looked genuinely confused. "Defensive measures? I don't have any defensive capabilities here. This is a research station. I'm conducting experiments on subspace communication using Saturn's gravitational field as an amplifier." She glanced at her equipment. Wait, are you saying my experiment is affecting your system somehow? Lieutenant Kale stepped forward. Admiral, with your permission, I believe there may be a technological incompatibility we didn't anticipate. Over the next hour, with Kale facilitating, Evelyn explained her research and shared some of the subspace energy patterns she had recorded. As the KRYLL scientists examined her data, a disturbing realization emerged. Admiral, Kale reported quietly, the humans' data matches our classified reports on the Void Maw. The atmosphere on the bridge changed instantly. The Void Maw was not widely known even among the KRYLL, a non-material, extra-dimensional entity that moved between spatial dimensions, leaving energy destruction in its wake. The KRYLL had encountered it only once before, losing an entire colony world to its passage. That's impossible, Malachur whispered. The patterns are identical, Admiral, Kale insisted, displaying the comparative analysis. And based on these readings, it appears to be heading toward this region of space. On the screen, Evelyn was examining her own data with renewed interest. These anomalies, I thought they were interference patterns, but they're structured, almost like something moving through the subspace field. She looked up. What exactly is a Void Maw? Malachur faced an impossible decision. The data was clear. This human had accidentally discovered evidence of an approaching catastrophe that threatened not only Earth but the KRYLL fleet as well. Yet revealing classified information to a potential enemy went against everything in his training. If this is true, he said slowly, then both our peoples face a common threat. Lieutenant Kale spoke up again. Admiral, the humans' experiment, while it's disrupting our systems, it also appears to be creating a kind of subspace static that might be able to mask or redirect the Void Maw's approach. It's possible that what we perceived as an attack could be modified to serve as a defense. For the first time in his career, Grand Admiral Malachur considered cooperating with a species he had come to conquer. After intense consultation with his senior advisors and faced with incontrovertible evidence, Malachur made an unprecedented decision to temporarily suspend the invasion and propose cooperation with Earth, or at least with Dr. Evelyn Reed, to counter the Void Maw threat. The initial attempts at collaboration were fraught with mistrust and communication difficulties. Evelyn, working remotely with a hastily assembled team of Earth's top physicists, shared her complete experimental data. Malachur permitted a KRYLL scientific team, led by Lieutenant Kale, to work remotely with Evelyn, analyzing the threat and developing a response. Cultural and technological differences immediately created friction. The KRYLL scientists were accustomed to rigid protocols and hierarchical decision-making, while Evelyn's approach was intuitive, experimental, and often seemed chaotic to her KRYLL counterparts. "You cannot simply try and see what happens," exclaimed the KRYLL chief scientist during one particularly heated exchange. "Each variable must be calculated precisely before implementation. Sometimes you need to follow your scientific instinct," Evelyn countered. "Some patterns only emerge through experimentation." Lieutenant Kale often found herself mediating these conflicts, developing a growing respect for Evelyn's unorthodox but effective methods. As days passed, a tenuous working relationship developed, punctuated by moments of genuine collaboration and even occasional humor. "Your translation algorithm keeps rendering my technical terms as culinary expressions," Evelyn noted during one session. "Yes," Kale replied, "and your Earth idioms are consistently interpreted as reproductive advice." It's making the senior scientists very uncomfortable. Together, they determined that the Void Maw was attracted to specific forms of subspace energy, and that Evelyn's experiment, while accidentally disrupting the KRYLL fleet, created a form of subspace, white noise, that could potentially mask or divert the Void Maw to some degree. A plan began to take shape. They would amplify and modify the signal from Evelyn's experiment, using the KRYLL fleet itself as a massive energy amplifier to create a temporary subspace safe zone, or a decoy signal to misdirect the Void Maw. This plan required perfect synchronization and a high level of trust between former enemies. The modification of Evelyn's experimental device on SS-7 and its synchronization with 7,000 KRYLL warships presented an enormous technical challenge. Evelyn and Kale worked tirelessly, their cooperation deepening into mutual respect and even friendship. Aboard the KRYLL fleet, however, discontent and suspicion grew among a conservative faction of officers who viewed cooperation with inferior species as an insult to KRYLL honor. Vice Admiral Zorger, long jealous of Malachur's success, became the focal point of this dissent. "We are being manipulated," Zorger whispered to his growing circle of supporters. "These humans have found a way to neutralize our weapons, and now Malachur invites them into our systems? This Void Maw threat is exaggerated, if not entirely fabricated, to cover his failure." As Evelyn and Kale's team made progress, data indicated the Void Maw was approaching faster than initially calculated. The pressure of time weighed heavily on their efforts. "We're running out of time," Evelyn told Kale during one of their work sessions. "The modifications aren't stabilizing properly. We need something to help regulate the amplitude of the subspace field." "What about the resonance crystals from our propulsion systems?" Kale suggested. "They're designed to harmonize energy fields." "That might work." Evelyn's eyes lit up. "If we can calibrate them to match the frequency patterns I've been recording." Their breakthrough came just as Zorger made his move. As the coordinated system was being prepared for activation, Zorger's faction began their rebellion, attacking ships loyal to Malachur and attempting to destroy SS-7. "Admiral!" shouted Vex as alarms blared across the bridge. "Multiple ships are powering weapons and changing formation. They're targeting loyal vessels and a human station." Malachur's response was immediate. "All loyal ships, defensive positions. Protect Saturn Station 7 at all costs. The fate of our fleet depends on it." Aboard SS-7, Evelyn worked frantically to complete the final calibrations as the station shuddered under near-miss energy blasts. Kale maintained constant communication, splitting her attention between providing technical support to Evelyn and tactical information to Malachur. "The crystal resonance is working," Evelyn shouted over the noise of emergency alarms. "Field stability at 85% and climbing. But I need the fleet in proper formation to create the amplification matrix." Malachur fought a battle on two fronts, suppressing Zorger's rebellion while maintaining enough ships in the precise formation needed to power Evelyn's device. As loyal ships fell under rebel attack, gaps appeared in the formation, threatening the integrity of the entire plan. "Kale, we're losing the southwestern quadrant," Malachur reported grimly. "Can we compensate?" On SS-7, Kale and Evelyn exchanged desperate looks. "We need to recalculate the entire field distribution," Kale said. "No time," Evelyn responded, her fingers flying over the controls. "I'll have to adjust the base frequency and hope the harmonic overtones compensate for the gaps." "That's extremely risky," Kale warned. "This whole plan is risky," Evelyn replied with a grim smile. "But I have a feeling about this. Trust me." As the battle raged around them, Evelyn initiated the sequence. From the small, battered station orbiting Saturn, a massive wave of carefully tuned subspace energy expanded outward, powered by the KRYLL ships still maintaining formation. The energy wave rippled through normal space, invisible to the eye but detectable on instruments as it expanded toward the approaching dimensional anomaly that was the Void Maw. For a terrible moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, instruments across both loyal and rebel KRYLL ships detected a massive disturbance in subspace, the Void Maw, reacting to the energy field. The entity's approach faltered, its path disrupted by the complex harmonics of Evelyn's modified signal. Like an enormous predator confused by a sudden change in its environment, the Void Maw's trajectory began to shift, veering away from the solar system and KRYLL space, eventually disappearing into another dimensional fold. In the aftermath of the Void Maw's diversion, Zorger's rebellion quickly collapsed. With their leader captured and the existential threat confirmed by all ship sensors, the rebel ships surrendered to Malachur's authority. Standing on the bridge of the Dominion, Grand Admiral Malachur made a decision that would change the course of KRYLL history. With his senior staff assembled, he formally rescinded the invasion order for Earth. What we have witnessed today, he announced, is not just the averting of a catastrophe, but the birth of a new understanding. The humans have demonstrated intelligence, courage, and resourcefulness worthy of respect. In particular, the actions of Dr. Evelyn Reed and the support of Lieutenant Kale have saved both our peoples from destruction. The change within KRYLL society was profound. Malachur became a strong advocate for reassessing other civilizations, arguing against the Empire's traditional conquer-first policy. Kale was promoted and became an important diplomatic bridge. The conservative faction, discredited by Zorger's failed rebellion, lost considerable influence. Instead of war, a new era of cooperation began. Earth and KRYLL scientists established exchange programs. Technology was shared, albeit cautiously. Saturn Station 7 became a symbol of cooperation and a joint research center. 6 months after the averted crisis, Grand Admiral Malachur and Dr. Evelyn Reed stood on the observation deck of the Dominion, looking at a galactic map. Your modifications to the subspace communication network have reduced transmission time by 60%, Malachur noted. Impressive for someone working with primitive technology. Evelyn smiled. And your crystal matrix technology has given us insights into gravity manipulation that would have taken us centuries to develop independently. I'd call that a fair exchange. The Emperor is still adjusting to the idea of cooperation rather than conquest, Malachur admitted. 5,000 years of imperial expansion is a difficult tradition to change. Humans have our own history of conflict, Evelyn replied. But we also have a strong tradition of coming together in the face of common threats. They both turned their attention back to the galactic display, where a small anomaly was highlighted, a possible trace of the Void Maw's passage through a distant sector. Do you think it will return? Evelyn asked. Eventually, Malachur responded. And there may be other threats we haven't yet encountered. The universe is vast and largely unknown, even to the KRYLL. Then I suppose we'll need to continue working together, Evelyn said, her eyes twinkling with the excitement of new discoveries to come. Malachur nodded, a rare smile softening his usually stern features. Indeed, our unlikely alliance has proven more valuable than conquest ever could have been. Their conversation was interrupted by a sudden burst of disco music from the ship's communication system. We still haven't completely purged that from our systems, Malachur sighed. Evelyn laughed. I've grown rather fond of it, actually. Reminds me of how our differences can sometimes create unexpected harmonies. As Earth and the KRYLL Alliance entered this new era of cooperation and mutual discovery, the legacy of Saturn Station 7 and the unlikely partnership forged there continued to shape both civilizations. Research teams worked together to better understand the nature of the Void Maw and other cosmic mysteries. Cultural exchanges led to new artistic expressions and philosophical discussions. And somewhere in the vastness of space, an ancient, incomprehensible entity drifted in another dimension, momentarily deterred by the combined ingenuity of two species who had found common ground in the face of extinction. The galactic neighborhood had become a slightly more cooperative place, all because a solitary human scientist experiment had accidentally disrupted an invasion fleet, proving once again that in both human and KRYLL history, some of the most significant developments arise from the most unexpected circumstances. By the way, Evelyn said as they turned to leave the observation deck, I've been meaning to ask, what exactly did your tactical AI calculate as the meaning of existence while it was under the influence of my experiment? Malachur's expression was unreadable. It determined that the purpose of intelligent life is to create perfect disco choreography. Well, Evelyn replied thoughtfully, I've heard worse philosophies. As they walked through the corridors of the Dominion, officers of both species working side by side on new projects, Malachur reflected that perhaps the AI hadn't been entirely wrong. finding harmony amid difference, creating something new from the combination of distinct elements. There were worse purposes for intelligent life to pursue. The once mighty invasion fleet had found a new mission as a force for discovery and protection. And occasionally, when no one would admit to activating it, the ship's systems would still play Earth's disco classics, a reminder of the strange beginning to an unexpected alliance.